How are we doing, folks? Well, one of the common causes of Volkswagen Beetles not starting is the starter bush in the gearbox. The starting motor on a Beetle works slightly differently to many other starting motors in that it doesn't have a nose cone on it. The shaft coming out of the starting motor goes into a sintered bronze bushing that's in the gearbox itself, so the nose cone is basically part of the gearbox. And the bushing in the gearbox can be replaced. So that's what we're going to do now, so I'm going to show you how it's done. The observant amongst you will notice that the gearbox is actually removed and on my garage floor sitting up on its spigot shaft. Really, it shouldn't be kind of resting on the spigot shaft, but it is, and I will give myself a verbal slap on the wrist for that. But what we can do is we can access the starter bush very easily without having to lie on my back underneath the car. Now, the easiest way to remove that bushing is to use a tap. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually tap it and we're going to pull it out that way. In the case of when the gearbox is actually fitted in the car, all you need to do really is actually to thread the tap in all the way through, and it will bottom out on the engine, which is the engine's flange, and the act of actually bottoming it out and twisting it will pull the bushing out. But in this instance, obviously we can't do that, so what we need to do is we need to tap it, thread something like a bolt or a piece of threaded bar in, and figure out some way of pulling it out. So we will set about doing that and see how we get on. Before we go any further, it's worth noting that there are different types of starter bushes, so you need to make sure you have the right one before removing the old one, because you know yourself, you remove the old one and you'll have damaged it in the process because you'll be tapping it and you can't reuse it at that stage, and then you find you have the wrong one and then the Beetle is off the road, or your camper van, as the case may be. Camper vans use the same setup. If you have an automatic gearbox, it is different, and you do actually have a nose cone on the starting motor, so this does not apply to you. Ask the bushing in question anyway, and you can see it just goes over the starter there, and that is basically what's inside the bell housing. So that's what we need to pull out. So let's find a suitable size tap. Of course, it does occur to me that I can actually just drive the bushing out from the other side because the engine is not in the way, so we can actually do it that way. But if you were using a tap, you could use an M12 tap, but what I want to do is I need to access it from the other side. So if I just put the shank of the tap in through there, you can see the hole that comes out on this side. So that's basically where the bushing actually is. So what you could do is, and we may as well do it this way, we'll actually tap it on this side, and that means we can just screw a bolt into it and then use the bolt to drive it out, and that will make it quite easy. I broke my tap handle a while back because it was a piece of crap made out of monkey metal, you know yourself, so it didn't take much to break, to be fair, but what I'm using is a vice grips. It'll do the job, and everything's pretty much square. So we're just turning that in. It's going in nice and easily. And then what we'll do is we'll get an M12 bolt and we'll just screw it in and then just give it a whack with a hammer, and it should drive it out the other side. There we go. So now there's threads cutting that. So let's get an M12 bolt. Okay, M12 bolt is now in, and it threaded in nicely, and here is my hitting stick. So now the bushing has now been removed. Okay, so that's the old one out, but how do we get the new one in? That's the next question. Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. Really all you need to do is just tap it in, but you need to make sure it's tapped in squarely. So there's no point in just going through it home because you will damage something. So it goes in there, obviously. And what we'll do is we'll just line it up, and what I have is that little socket there. It's actually a 3/8 to quarter drive adapter, which will do the job nicely for knocking that in. And then once it's knocked in and is flush, then we're in business. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just clean that out with a wire wheel first of all. Little wire bottle brush thing did the job nicely, so that's all nice and clean in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to just offer our bushing up in there and just position it correctly, and we're going to use our socket to tap it home, and we're going to get it flush. So it should go in quite easily. You don't want to hit it too hard because you don't want to swage it out, as in expand it or deform it or anything in any way. It's quite soft. And there we have it, folks. one new starter bush installed. So thanks very much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll chat to you again soon.